Welcome to the Filipino American Women Project, a podcast show that shares stories and life lessons told by individuals living or have lived in America that are of Filipino descent and identify as female. I'm your host, Jen Amos, a fellow Filipino American woman, and I'm excited for you to join us. Let's get started. All right. Hi, everyone. Jen Amos here with the Filipino American Women Project podcast show. And as always, I have my incredible co-host with me, Nani Dominguez. Nani, welcome back to the show.
What's up, everyone?
And we are stoked, like we always are, because every time we get to do a show, it means that we get to interview another incredible person in our Filipino American woman community. So I want to introduce you all to Melissa Barayang. She is a Morena, meditation guide, and space holder. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, it is our absolute pleasure. Why don't we start, Melissa, with you sharing, how did you hear about the project? And more importantly, why did you decide to join us today?
Yeah, I heard about the project through another podcast that's hosted by Filipino women. It is called Bruja Baddies. And then I think I followed them on Instagram, and then yours was like a suggested follow. And then I dived really deep into it, like listened to almost all of them within like the next like week after. And so, yeah, it was very inspiring and like super influential to know that like as other women were kind of feeling the same way and in this place of self-discovery too. And hearing both yours and Nani's stories and then all the other guests, I think that just really inspired me to tell my own. So yeah.
I love it. What do you feel like was maybe the number one or two things that really resonated with you as you went through our show?
Yeah, I think just hearing that other Filipino women are in this place of self-discovery as well. And then I think when you're in this stage, you start to dig deeper into your roots and your ancestry. And then I realized that there was like a void in me that I didn't really know much about. And then I started really realizing how much colonialism has to do with our identities as Filipinos or lack of identity. And then I think hearing, I forget her name, the one about like decolonization.
Yes, J.L. Umipig. Yes, we know her so well.
Yeah, and so I had been kind of like just dipping my toes into it a little bit, and then hearing that really just like validated all of like what I was feeling, because I didn't really have the language to put anything or maybe like the background and education to kind of put it into words. And so that was very like healing just to hear that. And then, yeah, just hearing like all the other women's stories about just self-worth and finding themselves. And I think these last few years have consisted of like a lot of deep healing and unpacking for me and really getting to the root of my patterns and why they were present. And like this year was kind of me stepping into my power, and really you guys just set an example or set the foundation for that. So yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. That's so beautiful. That makes me so happy to hear. And, you know, I feel like that's what we're doing by providing our stories is we're coming up with a new language for ourselves, new verbiage, new ways to describe our experience as Filipino American women that no one else can explain. Like our parents can't describe it. You know, our peers can't describe it. Like we have to discover it. And I think, you know, for me, like, although the show is, you know, prepped with questions and stuff, I really come to the show open-minded, and I try to do minimal research on the person we're about to interview because I want to learn directly through them. You know, there's been many conversations we've had just this year where I had epiphanies I didn't know I would have just in talking to someone on the show. So I love that this has been one of those tools for you to explore, do self-discovery and find deep healing. And I'm honored to, you know, be part of your journey. And, you know, it's really an honor to be part of your space, you know, like the fact that you've made space to listen to our stories and everything. So thank you so much for that. And the feedback it's just golden. It's greatly appreciated. And it really affirms what Nani and I are doing here with the Filipino American Women Project podcast show. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to add, just the, like, you guys, like, saying, like, oh, share your story. I think that kind of gets us out of, I think as Filipino women, we're kind of used to being in the background and, you know, staying in the sidelines and everything. And so it kind of gives us permission in a way to just say like, okay, I'll do this. I'll step into this. And it's a way for me to stretch and expand. And it's also like giving yourself permission too, without, like you said it, but not waiting for anyone else to really kind of like give you that permission. And I think for me, it's like really important for anyone else who has like a fear of being truly seen, just to know that they're not alone and that they can step into leadership, like no matter where they are on that path, and just kind of being imperfect. And yeah, because I've always been like a very shy kid. So this for me is like very out of my comfort zone. So I think it's important for people to see like people who are still in the very early stages of this process. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. Nani, I hear you agreeing a lot. Do you have any thoughts you wanted to share?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking pretty much everything that you just said, Jen, about how doing these podcast shows is, you know, our attempt at normalizing the Filipino American experience and really creating, like you said, that language for us all to use to articulate these feelings that we all know that we have and know that we share, but we don't always have the right words, Mel, like you said, to articulate them. So I think that just having these conversations, naturally we're doing that. And I know that for you, Mel, a huge part of your journey, which I think I've now realized after our little one-on-one last week or whenever that was, that that meditation has been a huge part of your journey that I think is maybe when you first start out in the whole self-discovery path or exploration. When I started, I didn't feel like it was really high on the top of my priority list. But after our little session, I feel really differently about it now. And it's something that I really want to dive more into and learn how to do, essentially. So I think that where you're at in your journey, and even just by following you on Instagram and seeing like the things that you post and reading your captions, like it's really apparent that you've kind of reaped the benefits of that and you have really mastered that process. And I think it's wonderful and just like so beautiful that you're offering to share it with people and be a guide yourself. So yeah, that will not be our last conversation.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that and like for seeing me. And yeah, it's just like a reflection of you, you know? So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Of course, my pleasure.
I love how you said like that was a reflection of you, because I think part of this project is really, it's not about necessarily sharing our stories. It's about the listener seeing themselves in our stories. And I think that's the importance of community and sharing and doing a project such as this is, you know, I think to myself, like lately, I've just been so obsessed with following like the people we've interviewed on the show. Like right now, I just bought Kay Fabelia's book called Rewrite Your Story. And she talks about, you know, what she's gone through as a, you know, Filipino American woman, now an expat in Madrid, Spain. And, you know, she talks about how very early in her 20s, she burnt out really quickly and she had to rewrite her story. But early on, even after burnout, she thought she was already a failure. She thought like her life was over, even though she was in her young 20s still, you know what I mean? And so, and so I have been really obsessed lately about like just following everyone and seeing their journey and promoting them and the stuff that they're doing. And I just can't get enough of it. Like right now, I work with my colleagues. I mainly work with white men, including my husband. And so I find myself when I am looking for a stress reliever, I go on our Instagram account or I look at, you know, our stories on Instagram and I kind of see, I was like, what's everyone up to right now? Or I kind of see like, you know, how many listeners did we get for our last podcast show? But I find myself just kind of defaulting to this project. And I think there's something like, I find something comforting about it. And, I've really allowed myself this year to just embrace exploring my identity as a Filipino American woman, which is a lot more than I feel like I've ever done in my entire life of being a Filipino American woman. And I believe it's because, you know, many people say that we've created a safe space for them with this project, but all of you have created a safe space for me as well. You know, hence why I kind of default to looking at our Instagram or, you know, the people that we're following, because it's just nice to know that we're all in this together and together we're sharing these stories and coming up with a new language to really feel enough, you know, to say the least, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's like, it's nice, like even feel like you can be a part of this community as your whole self rather than compartmentalizing like parts of you, like, you know, like just kind of repressing this like Filipino-ness like in the back, you know, but yeah, it's a big part of us. And I really want to thank you guys for cultivating that.
Oh, thank you. It's healing for both of us. You know, it's therapeutic, right, Nani?
Absolutely. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, speaking of Filipino American women, on this show, there's a lot of ways people identify what being a Filipino American is, and first and foremost. But for this show, we identify Filipino American women as individuals who live or have lived in America that are of Filipino descent and identify as female or pronouns she, her. Well, Mel, why don't you share with us a little bit about your family background and why you identify as a Filipino American woman?
Yeah. So my mom and dad were both born in the Philippines, and they were born in a province called Laguna. And my mom came here first, and then my older brother and dad stayed in the Philippines, like while she worked in the States to bring them over. So I feel like I've always had this strong connection and like to my mom as being super resilient and strong and kind of like this matriarch figure. And I feel like I always wanted to be like her, you know, just like very sure of herself and kind of like she'd never really showed like any weaknesses. So I think that had a lot to do with like my childhood. I think I shared this with you, Nani. I've always been like very sensitive and empathic. And so my mom, like, you know, she had good intentions. She just wanted to protect me, but she would always like kind of like try to shut that part of me out because, you know, like this world is not built for sensitive people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so she kind of, although she's very loving, she didn't want us to really show emotion. And so we would kind of have to, I don't know, not repress it, but not really welcome it either. Yeah, desensitize, you know? And so I think that is very like prevalent in the Filipino like community. There's like this negative stigma of just like our wider range of emotion. And I really started to explore that after I did like my yoga training and started getting into meditation. And and I realized that it is like a strength. And my mom has been so open-minded and just really welcoming all of it and embracing it and really just like being so supportive of this whole new path that I've taken. And I'm very lucky in that sense, you know. But yeah, I'm just learning that she kind of had to be tough for us, you know what I mean? But yeah, that sometimes it doesn't serve us anymore. And she's giving me the space to really explore that.
Yeah, beautiful. My mom is the same way. I think the way that my aunt described it is my mom she's always been like insensitive. Like she's just very direct with her language, like even if she speaks in her native tongue. And I too am a highly sensitive person. I'm an empath as well. And I feel my emotions really deeply. And one of the strains I had in my relationship with my mom is, you know, because I was who I was and she was who she was, I felt like there was a lot of emotional neglect in our relationship, especially when we lost my dad. So my dad, he was more of the empathetic one. Like he treated me like I was his princess. Like he always gave me the time and attention and he'd always hold me and carry me, you know, and love me. And he'd always get mad at my brother, like just for me, you know, like he was my ally, you know, when I was growing up. But when I lost him, I felt like the rest of my relationships from then on were very toxic and emotionally neglectful. And that really traumatized me growing up. And, you know, I was still an emotional, sensitive person, still am today. I just had to internalize all of it. You know, like I had to find my own outlets like journaling, or like I used to write fan fiction for my favorite video game. Like I used to like, I had this whole inner world that I really delved into because I got to a place you know, growing up where I was like, okay, no one's going to emotionally support me. So I remember when someone actually did, I would choke up. Like I would like try to act like I wasn't about to break down, but it was so like, it threw me back, cause like, wow, someone actually wants to know how I'm feeling, and what I'm going through. And luckily in the recent years with all the work that I went through for myself personally, I mean, obviously it's always a work in progress, but I feel like I'm at a healthy place now where I can communicate my feelings with people and not ask anyone to fix it, but to just be present with my feelings, So so with that said, I totally hear you. And I think it's awesome that, your mom is very supportive with what you're doing. And, I feel like a lot of Filipino American women are highly sensitive people. It's just we haven't been given the space for it. And I feel like we're making more space for it now. I don't know if it's just because of this podcast, but I feel like we're in a generation now where like mental health is so important. It's no longer taboo. And therefore we can talk about these things like, oh, I'm being emotional today. I'm being sad today. It's okay to have these conversations today. I do think it's important to have it with the right people because there's still those people who are not in tune with their emotions. You don't want to be around those people when you're feeling sensitive. But I just think it's a beautiful thing to discuss and bring light to, because I do believe that being a highly sensitive person and an empathetic person is an advantage for us.
Right. I agree. Totally. And I just want to kind of like reiterate, my mom was like, she was very nurturing, but I think like I internalized all of the like sensitivity and everything. And so not really blaming her or anything. I think like she didn't know how to deal with it. But and then that manifested in like a lot of other things. Like I would have panic attacks and I didn't know what was going on. And she was like very supportive, but we were like very like confused on why it was happening. But if we internalize it just comes out through our physical bodies in other ways. It'll find its way out. You know what I mean? So I definitely agree. Yeah.
All right. Jen Amos here, jumping into the middle of our show as I always do, to remind you why this show is possible. So, at the end of every episode, I tend to say, if you didn't catch our guest contact info, don't worry, we'll have those in the show notes. Check them out. I worked so hard on them. You're welcome. Well, it's been brought to my attention that our show notes are not as easy to find as I thought, which is why starting summer 2020, the Filipino American Women Project is proud to be partnering with Captivate, the world's only growth-oriented podcast host. Captivate is created for independent podcasters, designed from day one to help you to focus on audience growth and the expansion of your audio influence. One way that Captivate makes our lives easier as independent podcasters is by taking the guesswork out of making a website for your show. That's right, a website for your show. So listeners, starting summer 2020, finding our show notes will be so much easier. All thanks to Captivate. You're welcome, as always. If you're about to start podcasting or are getting burnt out from all the extra work of producing one, like building a website, consider a 7-day free trial, that's right, free, with Captivate by visiting thefil-am-woman.com. That's the Fil-Am, short for Filipino American Woman.com. Or, check out our show notes in the meantime, which is in the details section of each episode. Once again, you can visit thefil-am-woman.com or visit the details section of this episode. Yeah, totally. The way that it came out for me in my young 20s was I had eczema breakouts. So I have eczema and I have, basically, oh girl. So I remember one time it was like in my early 20s, I remember my skin was just breaking out. Like my whole right hand was covered in eczema, and that's my dominant hand, And I remember I could barely like bend, I know this is like really graphic, but I could barely bend my fingers without my skin cracking. And I got to a place where I was like, I couldn't go to meetings because people would want to shake my hand. It's like, I can't shake your hand. Like my skin is awful right now. And it really got me to take a step back. And I realized like, despite eating healthy or whatever, I realized that it was my stress levels that were really making my skin break out. But you're right. Like it comes out eventually one way or another. And physically is a good example. Yeah.
Yeah, I have eczema on like my eyelids, and I would be so embarrassed, like, because it was in middle school and everyone was like staring, and like it'll find its way out. It's crazy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that. Nadia, I want to check in with you. Did you have any thoughts or questions?
No, just agreeing with you guys. I mean, on the whole, being just a sensitive person, that's, I think anyone who's listened to me talk for more than 5 seconds could tell. I'm super sensitive, and I've always been that way. And to my family, I feel like now that I listen to you guys kind of talk about it and go back and forth, that was just the way that they have interacted with me throughout my life is probably just their way of trying to give me some tough love so that I can deal with the rest of the world. So yeah, that sheds a little light on my experience, I guess. And yeah, I definitely relate on the whole physical thing, because I definitely, before this year, have never really paid attention to my mental health at all, let alone chose to even acknowledge that it, was an important thing. And it definitely came out in a lot of different physical ways, all at one time, which was an interesting experience for me because I'm someone who was typically very healthy before and never really got sick at all and had a really great immune system. And this last year has just been me pretty much focusing on trying to rebuild that, my body, because it was just, physically so depleted. So it's not a joke, you guys, but I feel like most people will not really appreciate the significance of that statement until it happens to them. So that's how I was. So learn from our lessons, listeners.
Yes, your feelings matter. And if you think they don't, look at your body. And if your body is stressed out, if it's showing, if your skin's breaking out, if you're getting sick often, that's
your body will let you know.
Yeah. Your body tells you things that, you might not want to hear.
Yeah. I remember I had one of my friends, she's an acupuncturist. And I remember one of the first sessions I went to her for appointments. I was telling her I'm fine. And then she was like, you're telling me you're fine, but your body is saying otherwise. And that was one of the first times I was like, how can you tell? No, it's not true. But to really notice that and to realize oh, that's why I'm having these breakouts. That's why I can't sleep well. That's why I'm exhausted all the time. That's why I get sick often. It's how you feel really makes a difference, and how you see yourself and how you love yourself. It really makes a difference. So yes, listeners,
true.
It's real talk. This is
very
a real thing.
Yeah, I used to get sick all the time when I was younger, and we used to think, because I was born premature, so my mom and I were in and out of the doctor's office all the time. And I was like, oh, maybe it's just because I was born premature and my immune system. But I just started realizing it's all the stress that I was building up in my body. And and also came out, and I started growing gray hair when I was 18. And so that's when I was and so that is still a thing that I deal with. It's the meditation practice doesn't just magically get rid of all your problems and your stress, but it's an everyday thing that you have to kind of practice.
Adjust.
Adjust, and so I'm just realizing, the body holds a lot of wisdom.
Beautiful. I love it. There's this book. It's not really about highly sensitive people, but it sort of is. It's called Quiet, The Power of Introverts by Susan Cain. And it's a scientific study of how introversion is real, and how there is not enough space in the workplace for introverts to work in their best, to work as their best selves. Wow. And there's a part in there that, and there's a part in there that says there's a direct correlation with introverts also being considered highly sensitive people. And it shows it says that it's built in us, basically. It's not we adapted being highly sensitive people. It's in our DNA to be highly sensitive. And they show studies of the difference between those type of people versus extroverts, or people who are maybe not as in touch with their emotions. So don't quote me on that, but I remember that's part of my takeaway from reading that book is this is all real stuff. These emotions, these feelings are real, and they're built in us. And it's important to acknowledge it and embrace it and be kind and gentle to ourselves, and listen to our bodies and take care of ourselves.
Yeah, I totally believe that. Just because when I'm around a lot of people, even if it's people that I love, by the end of it, I feel very drained, and then I feel I need to recharge. And I used to think oh, maybe it's the people, but even with the people that I love the most, it's like I still can feel all of like what they're feeling. And people like when I was younger would say like, oh, you're just overthinking. But now I feel like that's more like intuition. You know, you kind of know what other people like are carrying when they walk into the room. And being an empath, when I was younger, I didn't know what was mine or what was theirs, and I didn't know how to distinguish like that boundary. But you know, now I'm better at it, but I still need a lot of alone time. And I'm understanding that. Before, I used to kind of just be like, oh, why am I like this? Like, everyone's asking me to go out, but like, I feel tired or, and kind of beat myself
I just don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. It's so important for empaths, I think. I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone, but from what I gather from what you're saying, because I feel like I can relate to it as well, is, you know, we have to make space for ourselves to recharge. In fact, our listeners probably know by now, I'm going to be going to, I feel like, I don't know if this will be out by the time I go travel to California. But anyway, I'm going to be traveling to California and I could easily stay at my mom's place. I could do that. I could totally just be like, hey, mom, I'm going to like crash on your couch and all that. But I have deliberately gotten myself an Airbnb for an entire week to myself. I'm not sharing it with anyone because I know that I'm going to be interacting with a lot of people. I'm going to be catching up with like friends and family. And I know that like when I come home, like the last thing I want to do is like have my mom ask me about my day. Like I will meet, I love my mom. I love her. Mom, I love you. But it's more like when you know you're ready to check out and then like someone's there, you're like, oh, I can't really check out. And then also my mom has 3 roommates, and if I'm sleeping on the couch in the living room, like I'm not really going to have like any time, any private time to myself. So I had already like thought of that ahead of time, and just the thought of it was already beginning to stress me out. So when I realized, I was like, you know what, I'm going to get an Airbnb. And now I just feel so like at peace already at the thought of going to California,
having your own space.
My family.
Yeah.
I think that was a really healthy like plan that you did, Jen. I'm proud of you.
I think so too. I'm really acknowledging you and like applauding you for that, because that's something that's hard like for like Filipinos as well, because I feel like family is such a big thing for us, and then so a lot of feelings get hurt if you say like you're essentially setting a boundary for yourself, and that's hard, you know. And I think a part of growing up is knowing that you could love your family, but also that you require some space too.
Yeah, exactly. I think like love doesn't have to be invasive all the time, or you don't have you don't have to be attached to someone to prove that you love them. You know, like even with like my husband and I, like we work together, but like I have an office just for me that he doesn't work in. Like it's my private space, you know, and then at nighttime we could easily like catch up and stuff, but even he needs his time. And so he hangs out on the roof and just like does his introvert thing. And then I hang out in the office and do my podcast thing. And it's like, it's just, I don't know who led us to believe that you have to be in a codependent relationship when you love someone, but you don't need to be in a codependent relationship. Love is abundant. Like love is a lot more resilient and stronger than we give it credit for. And having space away from my mom is a way to demonstrate how I actually love her, not how I don't. Love her.
Yeah, I agree. And you probably can show up better for her because you're feeling like filled up and you're not feeling like depleted. You know what I mean? So I think the relationship
and through that,
yourself,
you probably show her the importance of also having that distance too, so that maybe next time her feelings don't get hurt, you know? Like she sees the benefit that it has when you're there, so she's not going to really like argue with it, right? Well, hopefully.
Yeah, no, exactly. And also, also my mom can like, you know, and this is my mom. She just feels compelled to, you know, still treating me like a child. She wants to make me food. She wants to give me everything. Like she'll have food on her plate and I'm like, what are you eating? And she's all like, I'm eating fish. Do you want it? And like she's already like ready to give me the plate. And I'm like, no. I was just asking. It's fine. I don't, you know, like, don't worry, mom. Or like when I'm about to go somewhere, she's like, oh, do you want fruits? Can I pack you fruits? Like, do you want my car? Do you want to use my car to drive around, you know, San Diego? Like no, she's great like that. I love her for that. But I also like to believe I'm doing her a favor by like saying no and be like, no, mom, it's fine. Like, just relax. It's all good. Yes, I will take your car. But other than that, don't worry about feeding me. Like,
right.
Yeah. But anyway, I feel, wow, what a really cool conversation about like just how powerful love, just how powerful love really is. And, you don't have to prove your love by constantly like being around someone or like being a helicopter, spouse or like friend, it's a lot bigger than that. I just feel very grateful to have this conversation today about love. So thanks, ladies.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like when people push like too much, like then the other person pulls away, right? Like when you're in love or like friendship or something, like I feel like the less like hold or grasping that we have on it, the more then we can let the love actually flow authentically. You know what I mean? Instead of like doing that hovering helicopter thing.
Yeah. And I think with that said, I feel like people tend to, and I think about this in my last like toxic romantic relationships, but I think about how the love I had, I was really acting out of fear, not out of love. I was afraid to lose, I was afraid to lose someone. I was afraid to, and so I would do everything to try to, cover up that fear, by trying to be something I wasn't or trying to be overly accessible. And I just remember when I broke up with my ex of like 6-7 years, I say 6 or 7 because the last year was very complicated. But I remember I came to a place where I was all like, I'm going to let you go because I love you, like not because I didn't say that to him. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I have to, like, I love you enough to realize that I'm hurting you. I'm not helping you. And you're meant for something else. I'm not going to say something better because like I'm a prize.
There is no better.
There is no better, but you're meant for something else. How about that?
That's good. Yeah. I agree. That's beautiful. But I feel like that's so big of you, like to do that for him and for yourself. I am currently in a relationship and we have been together for a year, but before that we were together for 5 years. And so this is like, we were together for 5 years when we were younger and we were living together. And I definitely had this like fear of like losing him, and I was always acting out of fear, like being very clingy, you know what I mean? And I had no idea who I was outside of being his girlfriend because I was so emotionally young and actually physically young too. And I kind of revolved all my plans around him, even like life plans. And then towards the end of it, I was like, oh, it doesn't seem like there's like a real future here. So I kind of like started shedding light on it and I made the choice to leave. And then we were broken up for 3 years, and I remember that, like, after the breakup, I had to Google, like, hobbies for women because I was like, who am I? Like, what do I
Love
do?
it.
Like,
Love it. Yeah.
And that's where I found yoga. And I was like, okay, I'll try yoga. And it was really fun. And then I did a training, and that kind of led me to, like, this whole healing path and finding myself. And then we found our way back to each other, like, 3 years later, and he came to one of my yoga classes. And then I'm finding I was really nervous at first because I was like, oh my God, am I going to be that same person who was very fearful and just, I didn't know who I was. And I feel like I didn't give myself enough credit because I'm different. You know what I mean? There was no need to be scared because I'm not that same girl that I was. Like, and I think finding something that I love and that's something that's very close to my heart, that it seems bigger than me and then so seems bigger than both of us, like this purpose that I have in my life, that it kind of like makes room for the love like to happen. You know what I mean? It's weird, but by letting go and just surrendering, like you kind of bring the right people in closer to you. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm like going off on tangents, but
I hear you.
No, you are making sense to me. I mean, I'm probably like in a very similar situation in terms of like my last breakup kind of catapulting me into like finding this community and doing all of this self-worth work or self-awareness work, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, I'm not with him now, but that is, I can relate to everything that you said, like as it relates to just wanting to take on other people's problems, like feeling other people's feelings and just wanting to do what other people do and not really having that connection with yourself. And it's really reassuring to hear, because I am still trying to like not throw myself off of this path that I'm on. I'm trying not to like let myself get distracted with boys and things, you know, so it has me like kind of scared to even try and date again, just because I'm afraid of like losing that connection that I've finally found with myself. But it's really reassuring to hear that in your experience, like even after you found love again, that connection with yourself still didn't go away. Like you still can hang on to that and really can't let go of it, even if you wanted to now, right?
Yeah, even if I wanted to. And the right person will make space for that, for like this kind of journey that you're on and exploration. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's beautiful. There was this quote I heard. It said something like, the most beautiful thing about love is that it changes. And I think when we first fall in love with people, we assume that we set the tone, you know, from then and there, like like how the relationship started, how the dating went. And then when you're official, it's like whatever that state was, it's like for whatever reason, we were led to believe that like time freezes and we have to like keep that standard of the relationship going. And so yeah, I think we all underestimate the power of love and how just beautiful and vast and just resilient and, you know, any other beautiful adjective you can explain for love is
evolving.
There you go.
Evolving. I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh.
Hey everyone, Jen Amos here, taking a quick break in between our interviews, as I always do, to actually talk about a new resource that I have personally been using for a couple of weeks now called 7 Cups. I want to give a shout out to Asia Hilario, who shared this resource in episode 29. So check it out. We live in a world where you can be surrounded by people, but still feel lonely, with nobody to turn to when things get rough. But being heard is an important part of being human. Psychologist Glenn Mariotti, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, saw that there was great power in listening, but he knew not everyone had someone to talk to. He started to wonder, how can I make being heard a reality for everyone? And that's why 7 Cups was born. Thanks to thousands of volunteer listeners, including myself, stepping up to lend a friendly ear, 7 Cups is happy to say, we're here for you. No matter who you are or what you're going through, this is a place where you'll be heard and cared for. We might be strangers on the surface, but underneath, we're just the friends you haven't met yet. 7 Cups has trained volunteer listeners available 24/7 to give emotional support over online chat. It's anonymous and, get this, completely free. When you need someone to talk to, we're here to listen and help you feel better. Learn more about 7 Cups today by visiting 7cups.com, or, as always, you can check out the show notes for the link.
And even just love for yourself, right? Like, sorry, Jen, were you
go ahead.
Something?
Go ahead. All you.
Yeah, I found that like loving myself like is going to disappoint some people, because I've been a big people pleaser my whole life and just always wanting to say yes, and then I'm like, oh shit, why did I do that? Like, and then I get into this whole like remorseful feeling, like why did I say yes to this? I don't really want to do it. And then now I'm really trying to practice, and it sounds easier than it really is, but saying no is so hard for me, and like saying no to like outings or things, or just like I've maybe like cut ties with a few people because like I've had to prioritize just myself, you know what I mean? And even though meditation, like it's just sitting and breathing, but a lot of things come up, like you're healing like deep wounds that have been ignored for like your whole life, and not only your wounds, but your ancestors' wounds and like intergenerational trauma and stuff. So it's pretty exhausting. And so what people see on the outside is something that's very passive and peaceful, but it's tiring. And I think knowing when you need to be alone and knowing when you need to be in the right community has been like a balancing act for me. Like not just saying yes to the people because I think they're going to be mad at me if I don't, but surrounding myself with people who I feel safe with and who can kind of nurture this discovery stage that I'm in and like judge me or say like, that doesn't sound like that serious, you know what I mean? But who, can really hold space, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you start to, they say, or what is it? I've heard before that if you want to change your life, you change your friends. You got to change the people that are around you. And it's not to, put down those people. It's just that, there's also, I'm just full of quotes today. There's this other quote that said something like, this was a funny one. It said like, oh, you've changed. And then the response was something about like, if you think about it, we're always changing. Like we're not who we were a decade ago, like, it's like, of course we're going to change. Like I was a baby once. I was a toddler once. I was a teenager once.
We're
of course,
supposed to.
We're supposed to
what do you think? Yeah. And, yeah, that's right. So on my Instagram feed, on my personal one, the Jen Amos, in case anyone's wondering, I have this image on there with a picture of a caterpillar and a butterfly grabbing drinks. And the caterpillar says, "You've changed," and the butterfly says, "We're supposed to." And that's it.
I love that. I love
think that's just a great, that's just a great explanation of like, duh, like, of course, like, what do you think I am?
Why is
like,
that a bad thing? Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and even like friends who are super supportive, like I love them, but then sometimes I can't hold maybe like all the things that they're dealing with too, because I still haven't, like, I wish I could be very like as strong as I'd like, but like I've found that empath in me is still very strong and present, and with like all the awareness that my practice is bringing, sometimes I can't be around certain friends and they have all like good intentions towards me, but I know that they're carrying a lot on their own and kind of looking to me for like support. And I think like a lot of people who are empathic can relate to that. You're like the friend that everyone goes to, and knowing that that bridge is not burned, but like you can come back to it later, like when you're strong enough, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or that's something that I'm learning.
Yeah,
it's
and
like, that's not wrong. It's just about like reframing relationships, even the one that you have with yourself, and like learning how to reprioritize them. And that's a constant kind of thing that you're juggling, right?
Yeah, it's always a dance,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love this all.
Me too.
We love you too, Jen.
And I think it is important to like what you're doing in setting boundaries is you're also setting an example, to your friends, the ones that turn to you. And you're showing them like, hey, like in order for me to be available for you, I need to make space for myself so that I can come and be my best self when I'm ready to listen to you. But yeah, I remember I used to I sort of still do it with my husband, but with everyone else, like I used to like just drop everything to be there for people. Like a part of why I had been self-employed for most of my life most of my adult life is because I chose this path to specifically, be there for my loved ones' beck and call. Like I didn't realize that's what I did to myself. I was like, oh, now I have the life to be available for you, and then I got to a point, it was crazy. I got to a point where like, I realized that my loved ones didn't always need me. Like, I remember I would actively reach out to my best friend. I'd be like, hey, just want to check in with you. How's it going? And like, maybe we talked for like 10 minutes. Like he was just fine. Like he was fine. And then after that, I remember I was feeling like after that call, I was feeling a little empty. I was like, like I was able to build this life where I can be available for my loved ones because I thought they were in dire need of me. And no one needs me right now. So like,
so what do I do?
Yeah. So that was kind of a clear sign that like I was building my life for the wrong reasons, And so anyway, I remember that day where I was like, like no one needs me right now. It was a very weird thing to process. I don't remember how I like overcame that, but I just remember that moment where I was just like, what? Like, this is so strange. Like no one's calling me. No one wants to tell me about their love life. No one wants to tell me about just whatever they're going through.
Yeah. No, that's totally me too. I'm always like, who needs me? Like I almost feel like how when you were describing your mom, Jen, with like, do you need my card? Do you want the food that's on my plate? You want me to, you know what I mean? I'm totally that person for like anyone who's around me. I just like, I like to feel needed. And like, if I'm not, then I feel kind of like a waste of space or like You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's tied to like Filipino culture or if that's just like personality thing. Like, I'm not exactly sure where that comes from, but again, like going back to making a connection with yourself and learning how to like literally just sit with yourself and your feelings and like confront them, don't run from them. You know what I mean? I think that that kind of helps that process or eases it a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, with that said, ladies, let's go ahead and move forward with the next question. I love this conversation. We could obviously talk about it like all day.
No.
I was kind of thinking, I don't know when Mental Health Awareness Month is. I don't know if anyone knows, but I really want to, just like how last month was Filipino American History Month and we had a whole theme about it, I definitely want to have a mental health awareness themed month as well and bring on, guests who really want to talk about that and educate on that. So Mel,
I think it's in July.
Yeah, July. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's May. Wait, let me look.
Yeah, it's in the summer. I'm not exactly sure what month, but it's in the summer.
Google it. Anyway, keep that in mind.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's worth adding to the show is having a themed series of mental health awareness and being present and self-love and care. It's almost been like the number one topic on all of our shows. So it's like, we might as well dive into it.
That would be amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's keep note of that. All right. With that said, so Mel, we've hinted a little bit of your life today. So we got into how you do meditation and how you have a yoga practice. I'd love for you to share a snapshot of your life today, particularly what you feel like keeps you really busy and most excited about life nowadays.
Yeah. So nowadays, I'm just really excited to step into like this role as a meditation coach and building community around like our collective healing. I think more specifically Filipino Americans, just because that's like the experience that I have and who I feel like I can serve the best and probably who don't have as much access to it. I really want to break down that wall for us. But yeah, and so I feel like that keeps me busy, and just starting this business has been an emotional roller coaster. It just brings up a lot of your baggage. And so I'm really learning to, again, welcome it. I think that's like the theme of my life right now is just allowing myself to hold all of it, you know what I mean? And like the sorrow, the joy that comes with it, and the uncertainty, especially. I came from like a corporate background. I was working in fashion buying, and I felt like that's where my life was headed, or I was just on this path. I was going to climb the corporate ladder. And so stepping into this is very new to me because it's like there's no structure and I just have to put myself out there. And I was always kind of used to just being very timid and everything. And now it's really just sharing my story and trusting my voice. And that actually keeps me very busy. It's terrifying, but also very exciting. You know what I mean? And yeah, because I'm finding that my story does resonate with, it resonates with a lot of people. And that just fills me with like a lot of joy. And even like working with my clients, I feel so filled up like by it. And I just hope that I can continue doing this work. And I came from, again, like the corporate background where I was just so burnt out and life just seemed very, like I was like in the rat race, you know what I mean? And just like going from one thing to another, letting everything sway me and not really fully making decisions for myself. But now I feel like I'm designing this life that I want to live. And so yeah, that I'm able to even do this is like so crazy to me. You know what I mean? And so it does feel like a gift, and it's like a privilege that I don't take lightly. I know that, you know, like my parents sacrificed a lot for me to be here, you know, and to be able to do this. And I'm very thankful that my mom is so supportive, you know, and she just trusts that I'll figure it out. And then that gives me like the foundation that I need to just like launch, you know what I mean? And I feel like it's possible. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's beautiful. And the thing is that next year, 2020 will be almost like, it'll be my 10-year anniversary of being self-employed. And
oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah. Congrats.
Yeah, it's amazing, but it's also not amazing. Like, it's not amazing, guys. Like, I just I started blogging again. And I just recently made this post where I said something like, I feel compelled to de-romanticizing my life because yes, it's great. Like, yes, I get to live this lifestyle. I get to work from home. I get to work with my husband. You know, I get to choose my hours. Yes, that all sounds great and sexy. But it's also really hard, okay? Like, you got to work. You got to work more than, like, you have to work like 16 hours a day, you know, like you're constantly like, there's no such thing as a break. You're constantly thinking of like, how am I going to market this? How are we going to get new clients?
Oh my God,
you know, you have to be resourceful. You have to, like, you know, make sure you have money, you know, like there's all these things. And so I appreciate the compliments and just the, you know, congratulating me. But I also like to be the first to say, not that I'm trying to like repel anyone's compliments, but I also feel compelled to saying this because I think for some people who live in the corporate world, they're always looking at, you know, the other side of the fence, thinking, you know, the grass is greener on the other side. Well, it's greener if you water it and if you have water, you know, like if you actually can have the resources to do it. And so it's a crazy experience. But the reason why I've chosen to do it. I mean, one, I fell into it. I was fired from 4 jobs when I was in my younger 20s. So there was that. But also I told this to my mom a couple months ago. I said to her that, you know, I got a bachelor's degree. You know, I know the tools to get back into corporate America if I wanted to. You know, if I really wanted to get a job, I know how to do it. Like, you gave me that privilege. You gave me that opportunity, you know, to go to school, you know, to get the education I need, to volunteer, to get an internship, you know, to climb my way up the corporate ladder. Like, I have all those tools. And because I have all those tools, I know I can fall back on that. You know, if it ever comes down to it, I can fall back on that. And so that's what I wanted to add, you know, to like the fact that you came from a corporate background. It's like, yeah, if you really wanted to get back into it, if you really needed to pay the bills, like, you would know how to do that. And because you know how to do it, it's like, well, why not take a shot at pursuing your passion or pursuing what feels right for you?
I agree totally. Like, I was just thinking, I mean, I had been thinking about this for like 2-3 years already, but I was just so scared. And because I hear a lot of people just like talking about like the bad side of entrepreneurship. And so I was like, okay, like that doesn't sound fun, but also like also there's a bigger purpose that they're, you know, like that they're serving, you know what I mean? And I was just like, these past few months have just been like just so crazy, like stepping into this. And yeah, it's definitely not glamorous and you just have to put all of yourself out there. But I think I'm still happier than I was, even like, in all of like this darkness, like I'm still happier than I was like in my corporate role because I just knew that there was something bigger for me to do. And every day was getting like, I couldn't physically be there anymore because I was just like, I don't know, like there were like a lot of signs, like, you know, but also physically, like my body just like wouldn't like get up or like I was just so tired. And then I knew that I wasn't honing in on, you know, these skills that could potentially like help other people, like hopefully, you know what I mean? And and at some point, like that purpose and that faith, it just became bigger than my fear. And then I think that's what I'm like riding on right now. And then getting like new clients, I get like so excited because I'm just like, I just want to like feel connected to people and kind of like help them like return home to themselves. And so I think like having this bigger purpose has been a nice like thing to fall back on maybe. Like, I don't know. And so, and then for you, like being in like business for yourself for 10 years, I'm sure that you feel that way too. Otherwise you wouldn't have been an entrepreneur for so long, right? Like,
absolutely. I have burnt all bridges to consider. I mean, so before my husband and I moved to Virginia, I decided to pick up a part-time job. And just for a little bit, I felt like our life was chaotic. I needed something stable. But I immediately hated it. And I quit my job like 10 months later. Like it was just awful. Well, I mean, there was more to the story. Like my boss was not good to me. But as soon as I found out, I didn't know this, but I thought you're required to give a 2 weeks notice. But then when the HR lady said, you could, but you could also quit today. And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, because you're like, I forgot what they called it. It was like I forgot what it was. I don't care anymore. But basically when she told me that, I could quit that day, she's like, so what do you want to do? Do you want to do the 2 weeks or do you want to quit today? I was like, I want to quit today. And she's like, and so I remember like doing that. But what I like about this journey is that I've never felt, just like what you said, Mel, is that I've never felt more alive. Like I feel like my life is so intentional and I'm not sitting here daydreaming of what it'd be like to work in corporate America. I'm not like wishing like, I miss going into interviews. I miss dressing up, formally and, trying to pitch myself. Oh, I miss it. I don't like at all. And I think that's a clear sign that we're meant to be where we're at today. The fact that you've chosen this path as like me. And it's like, there's something about that purpose. The purpose makes the uncertainty so worth it, right?
Right.
I think that's what we're trying to say here. And
yes.
yeah. And I also, I say this to a lot of people, but there's no better time than now to be an entrepreneur, like in America. Okay, everyone, like in America, because like, even if you fail, there are plenty of resources, organizations, people that are going to help you get back on your feet. Like, it's just, you have the internet, like you can build a business straight from your phone. Like there's really no excuse other than what you're telling yourself. But the point is the opportunity is there and it's there for you to take. And I think if you surround yourself with people who believe in you to do it, then I think it'll make it easier to make that leap. But otherwise, when you do make that leap, it's like, oh my God, like I can't jump back. Like I got no choice but to do this. But yeah, no, definitely like the purpose outweighs the uncertainty. I think that's really, really it. And it's been an incredible journey. Every year looks different. Every day looks different. But I love it. Like I love the uncertainty. And I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with it, but I love it more than I hate it. So anyway, there's my entrepreneurial talk for today.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. That like brings me comfort.
Yeah. No, it's all good. Especially also, I have to give a shout out to two big communities. There's Entrepreneurs with an S, and there's Entrepreneurship. And I believe Entrepreneurs is in NorCal. And then Entrepreneurship is in SoCal, in Southern California. And it's just these two awesome communities of Filipinas in business. So it turns out a lot of us have side hustles or have full hustles or have businesses. And I think the more we see that, the more confident we feel in taking this, unpaved path.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Entrepreneurship I did an event with them, and just being a part of that community also, it kind of makes you redefine like what's possible for you. And you're like, oh, they're doing it. And so I can do it too, and that representation really matters, because up until then, I didn't see like anyone else who looked like me, like that was doing this. And so that really changed my whole perspective to it. Like, oh, I can do this because they're just like me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like this will be my last thing I can go on about this forever, but I think when you let go of that fear of like maybe financial stability, because I think that's what what our parents have sacrificed, they made all these sacrifices so we can be financially stable. But I think when you kind of like let go of that fear or realize that, the type of financial stability you're looking for, it comes later, like there's a delayed gratification to it. When you kind of get to that mindset, you're like, okay, I can do this. Like, I'm willing to make these sacrifices. I'm willing to make mistakes. I'm willing to humiliate myself. I'm willing to put myself out there and laugh at myself, because the prize it's a little down the road, but it's there. And it's all about having that faith and what you're doing. Anyway, that's it. Nani?
Yes, I agree.
I feel like I could just ramble about this forever. So
Sorry,
I got this an entrepreneurship show.
Well, that's okay too. I got kicked out of my conference room, so I'm just hanging out awkwardly here in the hallway. Sorry if you guys hear the elevators and stuff.
Oh no, that's okay. Okay, well, we're gonna wrap up soon, so hopefully you won't be awkwardly standing there for too long.
Yeah, sorry, I got disconnected and everything. I had to call back in, so I missed a good portion of that. Yeah.
Oh, no worries. You'll hear the replay, but we were just basically getting into this whole entrepreneur talk, and it was awesome.
Okay, great.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that said, let's go ahead and get into one of my most favorite questions of our show, and that's sharing a life lesson and a story. And the reason why we're doing this is eventually we want to be able to collect 365 stories and life lessons that we can publish into a book. That is, one other thing that we can contribute to the Filipino American community. So with that said, Mel, the quote that you wanted to share with us today is by, oh my God, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Is it? Oh man, I know this book too. Is it Coelho?
I think so. I don't know exactly either how to pronounce it, but that sounds right.
Okay. I'll butcher it for us. It's fine.
Right.
Okay. So Mel, the quote that you wanted to share today is by Paulo Coelho from The Alchemist. And if anyone wants to correct the way I pronounce his last name, please do so. Anyway, his quote is, "You will never be able to escape from your heart. So it's better to listen to what it has to say." Mel, I'd love for you to elaborate on this quote and also share what aspect or what story in your life led you to this quote.
Yeah, listeners, if there's something in you that's present and alive in your heart that you want to go for and that's calling to you, it's worth exploring and diving into, and just know that if it's right for you, even if you keep ignoring it, it'll come back and it'll tug at you until you listen. And so I feel like that happened to me when I was doing my yoga training and finding out that what I thought were weaknesses were strengths in this industry, like a holistic healing kind of sector. And where I had previously been in the fashion industry, those were looked at as weaknesses. And so I kind of just tried to repress this and I'll just keep going on this path that I thought I was going to go on. And then I was just okay, I can't do this anymore. There's something in me that will not shut up. I just have to leave because it's not where I want to be. And then I just took time off, and then savings obviously, but I gave myself time to just be curious and then really hone in on my skills in teaching yoga and everything. And then I went back to the corporate office because I was oh, you can't teach, it's too hard to make a living off of this, and I'm always going to be poor and stuff like that. So I got scared and then went back to the corporate life. And then again, something in me was just I was teaching at nighttime, and I was just I want more than this. I want it to be flipped around, most of my life be this yoga and healing community, and then I don't really want this corporate life anymore. And so I was just I don't want to compartmentalize anymore. I need to make this a lifestyle rather than a side gig, you know what I mean? And then so I spent many years and just kind of figuring out my plan and what I was going to do until I was just I can't even stand it anymore. And I remember I was working with my mentor, my meditation mentor. Her name is Charlotte. Her Instagram is Lotus in a Sea of Fire. She helped me tremendously. And I remember when we started working together, I told her that I would give myself 7 years to build myself up as a meditation coach and everything, and just have this on the side. And then by the end of our time together, which was only 3 months, I had quit my job. And I was just I'm just going to go in. And it kind of gave me, I don't know, I just grew some balls. I was for some reason, I was it was definitely a reclamation, of my power, of my voice, of my spirit, of everything, that I realized that I was the only one holding myself back. I had savings, I had everything that I need to be safe. You know what I mean? And by staying in that office, that job, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands that's okay for some people. That's what their calling is, you know what I mean? But if you have something different that's calling to your spirit, then follow it. But yeah, like, I forgot what I was saying. But yeah, there was just something in me that like couldn't stay in that job anymore. And I started to really plan, and then I had more opportunities teaching, and it just was getting too hard to balance until it was just like, I have to quit. It wasn't even like my choice anymore. I felt like I had to do it, you know? And so the universe will, as long as you plant this seed and just hoping like that it'll flower at some point, and we never know when it will flower, because I thought it would be a long time from now. But when you really cultivate that trust within yourself, you're just like, hey, I'm unstoppable. I can do this. I know that it'll be hard, but I'm smart, you know, like I can figure this out. And it's unpaved, like you said, Jen, but I think you mentioned before, like we're much more resilient than we think we are, or than, we don't give ourselves that much credit, like, you know, and so, yeah, just that.
Beautiful. And I feel like I have to put a disclaimer here for anyone, like in case we're like offending anyone, that you are working in corporate America. It's, I like, that's not our intention here. Obviously, if I was able to hold down a job, I would have done it.
Same, me too.
But I think it's really just sharing that story of how you followed your heart, and your heart was speaking louder than your mind, and the universe conspired in your favor. And before you know it, you, like you just said, you had no choice but to quit and embrace, you know, the entrepreneurial life full time. So I just think it's so beautiful. And I think a lot of us, we fall into entrepreneurship on accident, you know, like there's either this deep desire, or, you know, you mess up like me and get fired. But no, I think it's beautiful. And I appreciate you sharing that. And I hope to our listeners, this story inspires you to follow your heart, not compare yourself to us and the crazy life we chose, but to listen to your heart, because it's a very courageous thing to do, to listen to your heart and actually follow it. I think a lot of people are frustrated in general because they don't want to listen to their heart, you know, and they're more comfortable.
That's the conflict.
Yeah. It's like you're more comfortable being uncomfortable. Like you're comfortable in your discomfort, right? And but like it's familiar. It's like, I know how to feel uncomfortable in this situation, and I want to stay in this situation. You know, unless life happens to you where you do lose your job, or they cut your pay, or they cut your hours, and hopefully then the universe will, like, you'll hear what the universe is trying to say to you. But until then, you know, hopefully this story that, Mel, I appreciate you sharing, inspires you, the listener, to start listening to your heart. Just give your heart a chance, and, you know, just sit with your heart and be like, hey, heart, how's it going? You know, like, what's on your mind today?
And I do that often, actually. I'm like, what's here today? Like, what are you feeling? What is, because I've spent so long ignoring it, you know what I mean? And now it has a lot to say. So,
love it. The way that I talk to my heart, I talk to my inner child. So her name is Jennifer. So Jennifer's my full name. And I had abandoned that name really early, like when I lost my dad, because my family would call me Jennifer. You know, only my family calls me Jennifer. And so I kind of disconnected with that identity. And so now I'm in a place where it's like, when I check in with myself, I check in with Jennifer and I say, hey, Jennifer, how's it going? What's on your mind? I can tell you're frustrated, you know? And there's something really empowering about that, when you can, like, you know, connect with your heart in that way.
That is so beautiful. Like, thank you for sharing, because I think, a lot of my journey has been, talking to my inner child too. And even just knowing that she's there, I was like, oh, she's definitely here, and she has a lot of feelings, you know what I mean? And so always checking in on her regularly, because she just wants to be held, you know, and rather than pushed away, which we often do.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Well, Mel, thank you so much for being with us today, you know, giving a snapshot of your life and sharing your background and talking about how powerful love is, and meditation and yoga. Let me see. I want to check in with Nani before we go. I know, Nani, you're probably still in the hallway, but did you have any thoughts that you feel like you're able to share right now?
Yeah, I do. As the only one on this call that is still working currently in the hallway of corporate America. Obviously, I cannot speak all my thoughts at this very moment, but But I totally relate to your story, and I myself have gone through essentially 10 years of just being fired job after job after job and feeling that tug.
Yeah.
And I've even gone as far, as to leave to explore other things and have not really been successful in that either in the past. And yet, here I am, I still feel that tug. And so your story really resonates with me and just kind of makes me think about how I can connect more with myself in order to find, how to serve that to the world, because I feel it. I just don't know what to do with it yet. So yeah, both of your stories are very inspiring and beautiful, and thank you both for sharing.
Oh, thank you, Nani.
Yeah, and Nani, I want to applaud you for all the self-work or the inner work you've been doing this entire year. I mean, especially since I've met you. So I very well think that you're on your way there. And, what better way to kind of entertain that tug in a safe environment like this. So I just want to applaud you for that and acknowledge that and let you know that I see it. I see the change happening in you.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I really, really, really appreciate that. Thank you, Jen.
Yes. Okay, ladies, obviously talk forever, but let's go ahead and wrap this up. Mel, do you have any closing thoughts for our listeners before we go?
I think just remembering that joy and inner ease they're our birthright. And I think I struggled a lot in isolation with anxiety and depression. And I just want our fellow Pinays and Pinoys and everyone to know that this is for us. It's a safe thing for us to explore, our healing, and what's on the other side is really beautiful. And yeah, I just used to think that wellness and holistic healing were just for rich white people, because I didn't see anyone again who looked like me. And that's what's presented to us in the media. But I just want to, again, destigmatize it. But you guys are already doing that for us, doing the work in that. So I just want to thank you guys. And yeah, that it's letting everyone know that it's safe to explore here.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, everyone, you can come out now. It's safe.
Yeah.
It's
not going to bite. At least Nani and I are not going to bite.
Yeah, I will not either. I promise.
Yeah. And Mel.
No biting. No biting.
We're just letting y'all know. No bite. Awesome. I love it. Mel, for people that want to learn more about your practice and the good work that you're doing today, how can they get a hold of you?
I think Instagram would be best. It's a certain softness. So yeah, I think I do most of my posting there. So yeah, please find me. And I'd love to connect.
Awesome. And I will include that in the show notes for anyone who didn't catch that the first time or don't know how to spell that. But I feel like a certain soft, pretty self-explanatory. But I will include it anyway because I'm generous.
Okay,
so,
cool.
All right.
That's so nice.
Yes. Well, Mel and Nani, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you both today. I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I have a feeling this won't be the last. So with that said, and also our listeners, I want to thank you all for listening. We hope that you got a lot of value from this. And if you feel compelled, please check out the show notes to see how you can get a hold of myself, Nani, or Mel. All right, ladies. Well, thank you both so much for your time, and thank you to our listeners. And we look forward to speaking with you all in the next episode. Tune in next time.
Bye. Thank you.